Hey guys, Michael here. In today's video I want to show you a little bit about the modern poker theory video packages. So let's go. We see that totally we have 29.73%, while we only needed 21% to make the call. But since there will be post-flop betting, it's important to get a bigger picture of what is going to be our post-flop scenario. We can start off by checking out the hand versus range equity graph, so we can calculate this. Take a few seconds. And well, here we have on the x-axis we have the percentage of total flops going from 0 to 100%, and on the y-axis we have equity going to from 0 to 100%. So if we check out, for example, for hero to have hero is going to have only hero is going to have at least 50% equity or more in only 20% of the flops with this hand. And for example, in 50% of the flops is going to have at least 20% equity, so at least 20% equity in actually like 45% of the flops. So it's very narrow, the total flops where hero is going to have a lot of equity. Talking about, let's say, 80% equity, so 80% equity plus is going to happen only in about maybe 7% of all the flops. So it is really important to understand how frequently are you going to flop enough equity, and this is where we want to get to. Now, the total flops that exist in poker are 22,100, and here you can see all of them. For example, something like ace king queen, we have 64 different combinations of that. Aces, there are 4 of them. Flops like 7-2-2, pair boards, 24 of them different, two-tone and rainbow ones. And well, but what I'm interested in here is just equity, raw equity. So what flops are we going to flop over 75% equity? Check it out, and this will highlight immediately all of those flops. So we flop, of course, in the flops where we flop top 2 pair are really good flops, bottom 2 pair, full houses, trips, quads, of course, trips. So these are the type of flops where we where we will be flopping a lot of equity. But this is only about 3% of all the possible boards. And now, next thing, we want to see flops where we flop good equity. So flops where jack-6 suited flop between 50 or 75% equity. Now we're talking about some middle pairs, flops where we flop middle pair, and some open-enders, for example. Some open-enders with overcards. Actually, no, just pair for the most part, yeah. And then we have flops where we flop weak equity, and this we have, of course, open-enders in gut shots for the most part, or situations where we flop a weak pair and our opponent can flop a much better pair. And okay, flops where we flop trash equity, or equity between 0 to 33%. And this is, of course, all of the flops where the hero will flop a just jack high card. Okay. Now the interesting thing is that, okay, these flops, for example, are going to be the vast majority of the possible flops, 65%. And in these flops, hero will really struggle to realize his equity, because he will be mostly just check folding these type of boards, very, very high frequency with this hand. And if we select all of the groups, we can see how much equity our hand has across all the different flops possible, right? Jack-6 will have 29.77%. Now, going to the groups chart, we can see how Jack-6 offsuit will flop trash, a trash hand, in about 67% of all the possible flops. A strong hand in 3%, good hands between 50 to 75% equity in 18% of all the boards, and a weak hand in 33 to 50% of all of the possible flops. software is called Cardinal's EV, and what it does is effectively a EV calculator or EV3 calculator. So we have here both two players, big blind and small blind, in a heads-up situation. So the small blind is in position, big blind is out of position. The action starts on the river. This is the flop, 2-2-2, turn and river 3-3. Now again, the bigger the bet size, the more bluffs can be moved from this branch into this branch, and now the this checking branch happens less frequency, and that reduces the EV of the out of position player. We can chart this using again the bet size from steps of half bet sizes from 0.5 to a total of 10, and go. As we can see here, and also in the table, the bigger the bet size with half pot increments, the higher the play with the polarized range EV. The build history, I will get into more details again about the whole PIOSOLVER graphic user interface and how to set it up and use it properly in the next video of the series. But for now, I just need to show you how it works and get you the results so you can see it in action. After building the tree, we can run it, and it will just keep running iterations, adjusting its strategy until it gets to a point that it is very low exploitability. Again, I will explain all of this in greater detail later. Now, if we come to the actual strategy, we can see how each darker color represents a bigger bet size, and for the out of position player who has pocket kings, his strategy is to check pocket kings 100% of the time. When he checks, the in position player will use the biggest bet size, which is all in, and will be going all in 92% of the time, checking 4.8% of the time only. And again, it's only checking with queens with some frequency, and that will show us how the IPEV will be 95, and the out of position EV will be 4.8. So again, what happens here is the same thing, but in this situation, we just gave different bet sizes to the solver. We didn't give him the answer of calling 1 minus alpha, right? We just giving a bunch of bet sizes, and what the solver did was to starting off with, just make a new tree from scratch. If you look at this, the GT solver starts with all actions having the exact same frequency, and then it starts to change and estimate or calculate EVs after changing the strategies one way or the other, and then adjusting and counter-adjusting for both players until it gets to a certain EV. But if you look at this range, this is not a very good looking range. All of these hands are very bad actually and should not be played. So if we compare an actual see, maybe an actual GTO range. So let's look at this here. Button with 20 big blinds. This is another solver, by the way. This program is called Monker Solver, and I will again discuss a little bit more about it later. But for now, all we need to care or look at is the button here. All of the players again have 20 big blinds. They all fold to the button, who now can make a min raise or actually go all in. And well, this is the min raising range, and there is a small all-in portion. If we put together, let's bring a chart. Okay, if we copy this range and combine it with the all-in portion to see what is the total BPIP range, and here in PIOSOLVER we can use these range arithmetics to add another range, paste it in here, combining both ranges. Let's do some rounding so it looks nicer. maybe a little bit more rounding to 0.1. Yeah, looks much better. This, and we can make the folding range, everything else, and include it. So here, very clearly we can see what how different is. Actually, let's just make this bit over here. Yeah. Okay, now it looks much better. So yeah, the range computed by the POSTFLOP app is very different than the range computed by the GTO solver. Getting a PIOSOLVER window. PIOSOLVER has 4 main tabs. So there is the browser tab, where you will be looking at the strategies. There is the POSTFLOP tree building and calculations tab, the PREFLOP tab, which we will see next, and the tree information tab. Let's start with the POSTFLOP tree building and calculations tab. This one has 3 other tabs within it. So no limit for no limit hold'em trees, limit, and the version 1.0 style. So this is the previous version, how PIOSOLVER used to look the first time it came out. We will be using the no limit one. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is enter ranges for both players. We have out of position and in position here. So we can click on the box to be able to enter a range in this window. We can enter a range by using the slider or typing the hands here. We can also use this box to enter a number for 50% range, for example, and we can also select the weight of the different combinations here by either using these plus and minus buttons or just manually entering a number, something like 0.25. Well, you might also have already noticed that my grid shows a number of combinations by hand instead of 100% of aces, or 50% of aces or kings or whatever. I changed this in the settings. This is just a matter of selecting a checkbox to change that. Yeah, can use. There are many buttons here that are very useful. So, for example, you can select none. You can select all of it. You can select a range. Now, for example, for in position, we can do the same. We can just enter a range or use the 6 max button range here. Now we have player ranges in place. We can select the board, so we might want to solve ace king queen board, and if we are playing something like 5-10 NL, we might see a button raise of 2.5x will be $25. Big blind call will be another $25, so $50 in the pot, plus the small blind will be 55 in the starting pot, getting to the flop. And then each stack will have 975 chips. Now, next thing to fill in here is the bet sizes for in position. So we can select, for example, that in position has the option to bet 33% of the pot and 67% of the pot. You only have to do is separate them bet sizes by a space. Let's do the same, 33, 67, and also copy and paste 33 and 67 for the river. About raise sizes, raise sizes can be put as something as 4x, for example, or can be put as a percentage of the pot, so it could be 50% of the pot. This one, we are sitting on the small blind with king jack offsuit, and we have effectively 55 big blinds. The action falls around to the cutoff, who open raises to 2.2 big blinds, and I decided to go for a 3-bet. Typically I will use a bigger bet size here. This is stack depth, maybe 8 or 9 big blinds. Given the big blind is slightly shallower than the cutoff in me, I decided to go for a slightly smaller bet size, so I don't overcommit myself to call him off in case he comes over the top. So first of all, let's take a look to the ranges in play. So for the cutoff, he raising first hand. The cutoff, he is opening effectively with 80 big blinds against the button, so I think he will be opening maybe something like this, 37% hands. He could also be opening around, the 60 big blinds range, which is not very different. Even the 40 big blinds, all these ranges are very, very similar, so just expect him to be opening somewhere, along these lines, something along these lines. Now, as for me, I have a couple options here. I have 50 big blinds, and I have ranges for small blind defend versus cutoff. I have ranges for 60 and 80 and 40 big blinds. I don't have the 50. So if I had exactly 60 big blinds, I will be 3-betting this more linear range. And if I was 40, I will be activating this more polarized range, right? Now, given the big blind is shallower and I'm effectively less than 40 big blinds with him, I decided that 3-betting with a more polarized range here is also fine, so that I block his 4-betting range as well. The real solution should be a range that is somewhere in between, but I think it's for the effects of this video, it should be fine. So let's just clear this. We start with an empty PIOSOLVER window. First thing to set up is the player ranges. So looking at in position, okay, actually here he's opening this range now. Actually maybe this range. Okay, let's give him the 60 big blinds. So when he faces a 3-bet from the small blind who's around 60 big blinds effective, he should be defending around something like this. Yeah. And so let's give him this range, copy range for call. So IP, let's go for the rounding 0.1 so it looks cleaner. Okay, so I expect the in position player to be calling this very linear range, trapping aces here sometimes, flatting jacks, tens, nines, eights with a very high frequency here. Yeah. So as for me, I will give myself this range, copy range for the 86% bet size, 3-bet, rounded. Okay. Now we need to set up the board. Okay, let's actually play out the hand, and then I will show you the rest of how to set up the simulation. So, as played, it went check check, and the river is the 10 of spades. So now we want to have a small bet size here for 1/3 of the pot. We want to be able to bet here with sets. We want to bet some straights. We have flushes, but we actually want to check our flushes a lot here. And then, yeah, looks like our not flushes actually want to check a lot. And then the rest of our checking range is a bunch of 1-pair type hands and overcards. So when we check IP, he wants to go all in a lot because he's gonna have a lot of straights and a lot of flushes himself, and so by going all in he can also incorporate a lot of bluffs in his range. Once he jams with king jack, the only combo that really wants to make a call here is king jack with the king of spades. EV wise, the call seems to be very plus EV. So definitely made a mistake by folding here, since this is the only combo that really wants to call. I remember thinking for a while, I was like, man, this is really good bluff catcher, but at the same time I thought that I will have a lot of strong hands here, stronger hands, which I will have some flushes, I will have some straights, I will also have some sets that I decided to check, but looks like that is probably not enough. We also have to call stuff like pocket aces here, and even a hand like king jack is a better bluff catcher than pocket aces, because it blocks some of other combinations of value hands that IP will have. So yeah, king jack with the king of spades turns out to be a great bluff catcher here, making almost 3.5 big blinds per hand. So just a really great bluff catcher. Yeah, I should have definitely gone for it. I tend to in situations where I'm not sure if bluff catch or not on the river, I tend to fold, because population heavily under bluffs the river. But I think at the same time this bluff catcher is just too good, and I should have called it off. I will be discussing about GTO solvers, the importance of GTO solvers, and the main differences between the most popular commercial GTO solvers, such as Mocker Solver, PIOSOLVER, and GTO Plus. We'll also include in this video series a quick Mocker Solver tutorial, a quick GTO Plus tutorial, and an advanced PIOSOLVER tutorial, which will focus on the preflop charts generator, how to set up the files that you will be receiving with alongside this video package. So the preflop charts will include all of the preflop ranges for cash games that are included in Modern Poker Theory. Things like raising first in, defending versus open races, defending versus 3-bets. I will also include all of the MTT charts that are also present in the book. Same thing, just raising first in, defending versus open races, rejamming, calling versus rejams at different stack sizes and different positions that are included in the book. You will be able to access all of those from the preflop charts generators. You can very easily just copy paste them in PIOSOLVER or any other solver or equity calculator that you will be interested in, just comparing the ranges or studying them more in depth. So for the continuation bet. Now, when out of position leads out either of these bet sizes, IP has to have the option to raise, and we will give it the option to raise 40 or 45% of the pot, something like that should be fine. We are also going to be including all-in raises anytime the stack to pot ratio is less than 3x the pot. So we don't need to include all-ins everywhere, because of this setting they will be included automatically. Now when the action goes bet raise, we need to give a 3-bet size to the out of position player, and we want to give it 2.5x and 999 for all in. Let's remove this dot here. Then as a 4-bet for IP, we include the all-in. And now for the other scenario, when out of position checks, IP bets, IP can bet two different bet sizes. Let's give it 33% of the pot and a bigger bet size. Let's give it 67% of the pot. And now the big blind or the out of position player needs to have a bet size to check raise. We can give it 40% again, IP then needs to have a size to 3-bit flop 2.5x and all in, and then the 4-bit as all in. So this section is pretty much almost the same as on the flop, and then we need to set up the river bet sizes for both players. And for this, I just want to copy the turn bet sizes. I think this will also work well for the river in this situation. And now we can edit the profiles and save this one. This one should actually, let's rename this one because this one was the tip stacks, I believe. I'm not sure, we can check it out, but now let's add the current one and let's name this one profile. And there you go. Now we have this bet size saved here. And okay, the next step will be to build the tree. So we just click here. We can see how the memory needed for solving this tree is 1.8 gigabytes. The tree has been successfully built, and now we can click on the run solver. From here, if we want to run this specific solver, we can select from the different accuracy settings. This is the Nash distance. Again, I explained this in detail in a section of the book in Modern Poker Theory. Let me just load it up here. This is the section of Nash distance, and from here you can see how it is calculated and all of the details about it. Now 0.5 should be fine. From here we can select how many cores of our processor we want to use. For that, if you get the task manager from your computer, you can see how many logical processors you have. In this computer I have 8, and so I only want to use 7 because I want to leave one for the rest of my software to continue working properly. And then the next thing to choose is how much storage we want to be using. Basic storage, if we use Ctrl plus click, we can select the medium storage, and the turn report will also include data from individual hands, and we can also use the extensive storage that also with the turn data fully stored and does not require any calculation. So these are the options that are given by the solver. For this example, let's go with the medium storage, and now we can just select to run the solver. So we just have to run the solver, and now it will show us how many seconds is taken for the solution to be finalized. And this will automatically end when it hits the target EV. For now it is 36.7, but after each iteration this number will go down and go down until it finishes. Now I'm going to pause the video here and come back when this is already finished. Check out the play against the solution feature. From here, we want to export to Flopzilla Pro, so we leave this as live export to Flopzilla Pro. There are two main things you can do. You can play against the database, or you can play against the current selected tree. You can also play the drill against the current decision if you change the option to play against the current tree. So in this tree, for example, we can go check, and we might want to play only in the situation where IP bets, and now out of position is faced with the decision to react to the continuation bet. So we are in this portion of the game tree. We go back to the play against the solution, and we can select to drill the current decision, and we are out of position. And we can also select to lock the hand for here, so give us a hand, and just play the same hand over and over again. We can also select a range of hands that we might want to be learning how to play. So how to play middle pairs, weak pairs. But in this situation, we will not be using this. We will only choose the drill, the current decision, for example. So we have 8-6, bottom pair, face 1/3 of the pot bet size. We call, turn king of clubs, check. Now we face another bet. Now we have to decide if we call or fold our hand. Now, of course, we will not be raising with our bluff catcher here, and I think fine, just folding now. And if we make a mistake, the program will tell us if we make a mistake. Here we can select the speed which we want this to be playing out. We have the option to, well, we can see here in the top left the total amount to call, the pot odds were given, and the random number generator for 88 here. We might want to see that. In the show performance, we can toggle this on and off here, and this would show us our profit compared to the GTO for the entire range. Given the way we have been playing, this is for the last 29 hands. We can also choose to not show the hand versus range equity, and there are a couple modes we can select from here. We can choose the show the solution that shows you the EV of each action, so you can select always the correct action here. We can choose the no hint, so we will never get a hint of the actions. But what I like to use is the training mode, and this one, if you choose the wrong action, you will be shown, and then you will be shown. For example, here, let's say we make a mistake and we decide to fold this hand. This will tell us that this is not the best choice, so it will give us the chance to select again. Part number 2 is going to be about a deep run I had in one of a PokerStars World Championship of Online Poker, W Cup. It was a 1K event, which I made it to the final table, and it was a very interesting review and history. So the review will feature a lot of interesting hands that I mark for the specific use of this video series. I will be reviewing the hands using PIOSOLVER and other tools if required. The purpose of this review is going to be to familiarize the students with a professional player thought process over multiple hands. So how do I play, how do I think about the spots in game, and also reviewing them with a GTO solver such as PIOSOLVER. There's a offsuit. We raise 2.25, seems okay, although there are a couple of short stacks. Probably going for the min raise is better with the button and cutoff being so shallow. Button does 3-bet me, no all-in bet size. Now I have a decision with the ace jack, and I think this is the worst ace x offsuit that I'll be calling here. Maybe ace 10 could be called with some frequency. Let's check out the charts. So raising first from, this is the hijack with 25 effective against the bottom versus 3-bet. So yeah, ace jack O, we can jam here sometimes. against the GTO bottom trailing range. Now let's check out. Let's take a look to the bottom range here. What should the bottom we be triggering? So bottom defend versus hijack with 25. Should be going all in with some of these middle strength hands. Makes sense. Some suited ace-x. A lot of these hands want to call. So what does the bottom want to be triggering me non-all in here? Some offsuit ace-x, aces, jacks plus, ace king, ace queen suited, and a few bluffs. Yeah, against this range, I think ace jack O does pretty well either way. I like calling mostly. I think people might be missing some of these bluffs, so just calling potentially better than jamming, but could go either way. We call. Flop comes king 4-4. We have the ace of spades. We check. IP bets 1/4 of the pot, even less than that. Let's see. So, oh no, not the holding resource calculator. We need the standard calculator. So 3.5 divided by 14.5, 24% of the pot seems reasonable. And here we have a decision with our hand. I decided to go for the check min raise. Having the ace of spades is pretty sweet here. If he calls, we can jam in his spade. If he just goes all in or something, we have an easy fold. If he calls and we break the turn, we just give up. So let's check out this strategy. While I check raising, he folded. So let's see if the solver agrees with our play, or if we can learn something from this one. So king of spades, 4 spades, 4 diamonds. Okay, I will be checking my range here. We will have a lot of king X, a whole lot of king X here. We also have aces. We have a few 4x with the ace 4 and some flushers as well. So we check, and IP will exclusively want to bet 25% of the pot here, and then checking some hands, checking back kings full, checking back pocket jacks, 9s, 8s, 7s, 6s, looks very reasonable here, and c-betting mostly ace king, aces, and then air. This looks very reasonable to me. The ace 2 on diamonds, which is interesting. Also the ace 7 on diamonds, and the ace queen on diamonds. Looks like our hands that IP actually wants to check back and try to realize equity instead of betting and having to bet fold. Hands that have a lot of potential backdoor equity. The third part of this video series will be 100 big blinds no limit holding cash. For this, we'll be generating a aggregated report analysis from a big blind versus bottom and big blind versus under the gun 97 flop subset. We'll aggregate the data and show you how can you also take advantage of all of these features, such as aggregated reports, analysis. I think this is something that is really important. It's very powerful. Of course, you will have to also use different tools such as Microsoft Excel or some sort of a spreadsheet that you can visualize the data generated from the solver. But I'll be showing you how I do it with Excel. It's not so difficult. Just it's going to be focused on creating some tables, sorting the data, and making it more pleasant or more easy to digest via a few visualizations or things like that. It's not something too difficult to do. I will be showing you how to do it, and then I will also include in this video package all of the 97 flop solutions with PIOSOLVER in PIOSOLVER format, so you can access them if you happen to own PIOSOLVER. You can load all of them, and I will also include the Excel spreadsheets, So you can also just check them out the way I created them and replicate the steps by yourself in future aggregated data flops analysis. We'll also include a simple GTO trainer tutorial where I will show you how to set up the simple GTO trainer and also how to play against GTO solutions. I think this tool is something really really nice. I also showed you a little bit of how to play against the GTO solution using GTO Plus. I will include that in the GTO Plus tutorial. And if you want to know more about that, you can go to the gtoplus.com website. But with this one, with the simple GTO trainer, you can use GTO solutions from PIOSOLVER or from simple POSTFLOP. So if you already have a library of solutions, this is a great tool to have. If you don't, if you want to use PIOSOLVER for your main study, that's also very valuable to have the solutions from PIO and then use the simple GTO training to play against the GTO solutions. I will be showing you how to play against the solutions including in the pack so you can try them by yourself. All right, I really hope you guys enjoyed this. This was Michael for DMB Poker, and see you next time. Flops where IP range will be will have some portion of the range that is very polarized. So he wants to bet that polarized portion on the flop using a very large bet size, and then check back a lot of the rest, plus a few slow plays or strong hands that protect the range. So what type of hands, how do the ranges look like? Well, we can come here and just open one of those. Looks like the ace king 3, right? So ace king 3 is the highest overbet frequency. So let's open that flop. And we can see here that after the big blind checks, indeed, most of IP range really wants to overbet. Now, if we compare the EV of overbetting against betting 1/3, we can see very clearly here how some hands in IP range really benefit from using the overbet. Like ace king is going to be plus 4.9 chips, which is a lot. A big blind is 10 chips, so this is almost 1/2 of a big blind gain by ace king when you choose to overbet. Same for pocket trees, this is massive gain. And then these hands, queens, jacks, and tens, these benefit more from betting small. But these hands, as we can see here in the overall strategy, are not even bet, they are checked. So what's key here is that, yeah, there are some portions on IP range that really benefit from using the larger bet size, the overbet. And in this flop, ace king 3, the best strategy for the bottom will be to overbet, betting around 30–35% of his hands, and then checking back 60% of the time. All of the hands that really want to check, like pocket queens, pocket jacks, pocket tens, pocket nines, right? So what do you do with pocket aces, which is the nuts here? Well, this hand, looking at EV, is a slightly higher EV, betting 2/3, but in reality is pretty much indifferent, just a small fractional points here. So you can do whatever you want with this hand. If you're going to use other bet sizes, you can put aces there sometimes to balance them out. But for the most part, in this flop, what I would recommend is only going for the for the overbet, and then check back a lot. And well, I will be splitting my aces probably. If you look at this strategy, aces want to check back around 27% of the time, so you can probably just do around 1/3 of the time check back your aces, and then the rest of the time overbet along the other hands in your range that really want to overbet. How do you build your c-betting range in this board? Well, the stronger range, the strongest hands, like ace, well, first there's a threshold in top pairs. You look at ace queen is the strongest top pair, and it's going to be mostly continuation bet. Then ace jack can start to check sometimes back, ace 10 checks a little bit more, ace 9 checks a little bit more, and so on, until you get up to ace 4, ace 2, which are gonna check most of the time. Ace 3 is of course 2 pair, and he mostly wants to continuation bet. Looking at this, the EV of betting overbetting and checking. There's a small difference, but the general idea is that you want to build your range around the hands that really benefit from betting right now. Now, if you bet small, the big blind should only fall about 1/3 of the time here. If you go for the overbet, the big blind should fall around 60% of the time. So you benefit by generating a lot of full equity, and at the same time, the strongest portions of your range, right, like ace king, for example, pocket threes, all of those hands will benefit because they can get immediate value from a lot of these hands that are not even falling to the overbet. Then once the big blind calls and the turn breaks, let's say maybe the 3 of spades, so it's a bigger brick, and he checks back. Now the strategy is going to be to overbet again as the in-position player, because we still have a lot of these really strong hands that want to put a lot of money in the pot. So you should proceed with the overbet again. Now the big blind should be folding around 54% of his hands, and now you can see how hands like ace 9, as strong as ace 9 and ace 10 are becoming indifferent and can be folded now. So even ace 10 is a much worse hand than ace 9 because ace 10 blocks a lot of the IP bluffs that include a 10. So looking back here, jack 10 and queen 10 are some of the main bluff hands, and 10-9 is also a bluff hand here. So yeah, having a 10 in your hand is particularly bad, and in this situation against the overbet, ace 10 is a worse call than ace 9, ace 8 because they don't block as many bluffs. Okay, so if the big blind calls again in the river, let's say, okay, let's make the turn something like the 2 of spades, same thing. And we can even look at the hotness feature here to see the IP strategy. And you can see that on most of the turn cards, IP really wants to overbet. Only on a heart, IP wants to bet small, mostly 1/3 of the pot. So this is right here, very good insight. What's your strategy? Well, you overbet the pot on the flop. Then on the turn, you mostly want to overbet and then keep checking back some hands that are not as strong to overbet again. So what does our overbet range look like? Well, keep overbetting ace queen, of course, ace jack. A lot of these ace x can keep overbetting 2 pairs and bluffs. You want to keep overbetting with bluffs like queen jack, queen 10, jack 10, all of these type of hands. These small pocket pairs are good bluffing cards. The middling ones are, if you still have some of those, are better to just check them back now. And then you want to check back some of the weaker ace x with some frequency, so you still have some top pairs when you check back. Of course, your top of range definitely wants to keep putting a lot of money into the pot now. And yeah, once the big blind calls one more time and everything breaks on the river, let's say the river is something like the 8 of diamonds, so absolute break. The big blind range here contains a bunch of ace x, some flush draws that break now, and some second pairs like some king x and stuff like that. So now the play for IP is just to go all in for slightly more than pot. Now the big blind is in a very difficult spot again with a lot of his hands where he has to fold 54% of the time. So let's say we want to drill the node where it goes check and then bet. So we are going to be drilling defense against continuation bets. We could also do this for turns and rivers. I will take just more time computing, and here you can see how this decision point, the node, is our column, semicolon, our column 0. So we need to enter this here, our column 0, column again, right? Column C, column B, column 18, and now we just check this one. We need to give it some time. It will check all of these flops and see if these node exist in each one of them, and then we will be able to add the drilling in this spot. So I'm going to pause the video and come back here. Okay, I think I made a mistake and put a semicolon here that was not necessary, so just click here and check again. Now, yeah, it shows how it goes over each one of the flops, just making sure that this branch of the game tree is valid in each one of the flops that you have in the folder. The folder, if you want to check out how it looks like, we are Dropbox, the video packs, the advanced pack, civil defense. Nope, it should be line here, Pilgrim versus Button, and there you go. Here are all of the flops that were run from the script. Now, once this finishes going over all of them, we will be able to play our drill. Now, you only have to do this process once. After it is finished, you get to play your drill over and over again. So again, I'm just going to pause the video and be right back. All right, so this is now finished, and it shows the action of IP check and then IP bet. Now we have all the options here to check raise, call, or fold. And yeah, so we want to be drilling against the small civet size. Let's save this, and now it says regular, and we have the drill option here as well. So now we can train against the solution. It will take a few seconds to get to the exact point in the hand we are testing, which is the defense against the continuation bet. And now we can see that we have all of the actions in multiples of 25%, because that's what we set this drill for, multiples of 25. Now if I want to change something, it will only go from 25 to 0, so I cannot choose an action 10% of the time. I can only choose something 25, 15. I think this is easier because in reality it is very difficult to mix up things, something like 10% only, or a small fraction of the time. But unless you're using a random number generator in game, like a small bet size here, we just only want to call. Now we don't want to raise or fold this hand ever. So now the GTO evaluation that says that this is correct, giving us a new hand. 554 Jack 9. This hand is just going to be a pure fold again. I just want to fold this hand always. Now it's computing. It says again that the evaluation is correct. 6-3 bottom pair on this king 6-2 board, middle pair actually. I'm thinking that maybe we want to check raise this hand with some frequency, and we don't really want to fold, so maybe this mix 25-75. Let's try it out. And again, we are correct here. King 10 on ace jack. This hand we definitely just want to call. I don't think we want to be doing anything else but calling these, so let's just call, and we are correct again. So I'll just leave it like that in this one. D7-6 on this board. We have